Minister, in my view, the stakes are very, very high in terms of the secret payment scandal in RTE and the impact it has on public service broadcasting. I do not want to live in a world where the only sources of news and broadcasting are Elon Musk, Rupert Murdoch, Mark Zuckerberg and big for-profit corporations. At least with public service broadcasting, they're supposed to be not-for-profit and serving the public interest and can be held accountable. But this scandal has very seriously jeopardised the credibility of public service broadcasting. Now, I sat through that committee for 4.5 hours yesterday, and there's a lot of detail. In some ways you can get lost in the detail. But it seems to me there are a couple of issues that are absolutely stand out. The workers, the vast majority of ordinary workers in RTE were asked to endure a 15% pay cut. On top of, in many cases, poor contracts and conditions of employment, already low pay for huge numbers of them, bogus self-employment, standby contracts, buyout contracts for actors and performers. But one performer didn't want to take the pay cut, and then a group of people, or one person, it seems to me it has to be a group, conspired a plot to make sure that that presenter did not take the pain, and hatched a plot to conceal that fact from the public, who, let's remember, fund RTE and can go to jail if they don't pay their TV licence, from the Oireachtas, and from the vast majority of RTE workers who work in there.
Deputy, you're pressing the boundaries now here. You're making very personal accusations.
I didn't mention any names.
Well,
I didn't mention any names.
You don't need to mention any names. Be careful, please.
In my view, a plot was hatched to conceal these secret payments from the public, from the Oireachtas and from the workers of RTE, and to launder that payment through Renault. And to mislabel that payment as consultancy when it clearly was not a consultancy. It was a payment to an individual that a group of people or individuals wished to conceal from the public. And the public were always going to pay because, as we were told yesterday, Renault insisted it was cost neutral. In other words, the public had to pay for it. Now, we need to know who hatched that plot and why. And secondly, the other thing that came screaming out to me was the idea of the talent. That there was this idea, there was a group called the Talent who are on staggering salaries, multiples of what ordinary workers got, who were treated differently than the vast majority of workers and journalists and crew and so on, who apparently are not talent, but who in actuality make RTE function and provide the journalism, provide the broadcasting on which we depend, who are treated shockingly. Which suggests the government and this House have to be responsible for a massive culture shift to end that sort of obnoxious inequality and to restore the credibility of public service broadcasting.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Boyd Barrett, and I agree with you in relation to the importance of public service broadcasting. It's been massively important in our history. It was really important when we didn't have other broadcast stations to ensure that actually there was a strong broadcast and public service broadcasting operation and service here in Ireland. And indeed, RTE have provided a massive service to our citizens and our country over many years. And it's even more important now in the context of where it's much easier to broadcast and to provide means of communication. It's even more important now, and given the capacity of misinformation in that type of environment, to have a trusted public service broadcaster in a country. In return for the citizens paying a fee towards public service broadcasting, we expect, and they do get, fair and impartial and balanced coverage. What they also expect is transparency in the relation to the way that their fees and their money is paid to a public service broadcaster and in terms of how it's spent. Yesterday, following the appearance at the Media Committee, Minister Catherine Martin, who has been very strong in relation to the government response to this, indicated, in the government's view and her view, that what we saw at the committee yesterday, as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, has been a shocking failure of governance at senior management level in RTE. And we expect those attending the committee today to responsibly account for the decisions taken which have seriously damaged the public's trust in public service broadcasting. The Minister Deputy has also asked for an accelerated timeline in relation to the completion of the further Grant Thornton report into the understatement by RTE of the additional €120,000 related to the periods between 2017 and 2019. That's currently scheduled to take 4 weeks, and the Minister has asked for that to be accelerated. The Grant Thornton report indicates that the €120,000 end of contract payment wasn't in fact paid, and the new Grant Thornton review is seeking to establish the facts as to why, if not paid, it was deducted from the published figures. Also, to clarify, Deputy, it's my understanding that the understatement only came to light during an internal review validating prior published earnings requested by the RTE board last week. Following Minister Martin's meeting with the RTE chair on the 24th of June, Minister Martin announced that she will commence an independent review of governance and culture at RTE. She has also provided an update on this review to Government and is intended that the full details will be signed off by Cabinet in the coming days. Minister Martin has also met with the RTE Trade Union Group yesterday and Screen Producers Guild or Screen Producers Ireland to discuss the governance and culture review. The Minister has also been clear in her communications to the Chair and Deputy Director General of RTE that relevant members of the Board, the Executive Board and all relevant senior staff should attend and engage fully with the Oireachtas committees examining these matters. And I think it's very important that the Public Accounts Committee is having a further meeting on this day, and we expect to see clear answers and transparency at that committee hearing.
Thank you very much. Just Deputy Boyd Barrett for a minute now before you proceed. I'm very conscious of the public anger, well reflected here by members of the current controversy. But I'm also very conscious of the need to ensure that we do not in any way abuse privilege here. You have accused, as I read it, an identifiable individual of being involved, or perhaps being involved in a conspiracy. That's a deliberate attempt to distort the reality. You accuse that individual of being unwilling to take a pay cut. Now, I don't know that we can stand over those statements. Don't know we can stand over those. So just, please.
Okay, can I have my time now?
Yes.
Yesterday we were told there was significant pushback from that individual on the 15% pay cut. That's what we were told in the committee. Okay? Now, the problem is, and that there was secret payments made, and that they were, and I don't think there's any other way to describe it, laundered through Renault, and then mislabelled as consultancy fees when they clearly weren't. Now, if we take at face value what we heard yesterday, and I'm not saying we should, by the way, we need to get to the bottom of that. Is that true? And we need answers and accountability to ensure this never happens again, but so people get to the truth. And it is important because at the back of it is also, as I said, this cultural problem, where if, like, there's a group called the Talent who are treated in one way, and then there's all the other workers in there who endured pay cuts, who have to put up with pay freezes, bogus self-employment, buyout contracts, and I heard mention of screen producers. Another area that should be investigated is the €40 million that goes from RTE to the independent film production sector, where workers in that sector are saying workers there are being abused and being robbed of their proper conditions of employment, and where
the Minister now, please.
Law around Copyright Directive, Fixed Term Workers Act is not being complied with. Right? We need to address that culture.
Thank you, Minister.
Deputy Boyd Barrett, we want to see, and the government wants to see, a strong future for public service broadcasting in this country. It's something I think we all put a very strong value on. And that's why it has been so disappointing to see that, that breach of trust in terms of the last couple of weeks, and the lack of transparency in relation to salaries and indeed the challenges and weaknesses in relation to governance as well. That's why, as a government, we're taking it so seriously. That's why Minister Martin is putting in place an independent external review of governance and culture at RTE to ensure that we can address the issues that are there. And we expect, to be clear, we expect the RTE management and directors at the committee today to be fully transparent in terms of answering the questions that will be put to them. But also, we need to make sure that those are addressed, that trust is restored, that it is absolutely clear that there is a solid, strong governance structure in place into the future in RTE, and that there's absolute transparency, because unfortunately that hasn't been the case in the last couple of weeks. And that's why we take the matter so seriously, and that's why we're taking the steps in relation to ensuring that it is addressed as well. Thank you.
Now.